We are here in front of your work, your current exhibition called Variations. Please, could you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, for the past decade, 10 years or so, I have actively been working, doing more abstract work with photography. My earlier career was very traditional in taking pictures, nudes, portraits, and still lifes, and that sort of thing. And I realized in the later 90s that my talent and my interest in the process of photography was more interesting to me, and I enjoyed that aspect of making artwork more than being behind the camera. So I started exploring alternative processes and playing and not using cameras and exposing things on photographic paper, very much in the traditional photogram type medium. I did a show in 2007 with Foley Gallery, and that used the lithe process, and that was no cameras, and again it was all done in the darkroom.
How long did you work on your paintings here, on your work?
I started experimenting in the summer months of 2010. And of course, like anything, you start small and you get results that are not satisfactory at first, but and this is all part of the process. And I think all of everything that I've been doing the last decade is about process. So you keep moving, you keep trying, you try different methods, you experiment in different ways, and then something just started to pull together, and I could see it was leading me into a direction that I really wanted to go. So I would say September, the fall of 2010 is when I really started getting involved and making this work. Yeah.
What fascinates you about action painting, which is also your inspiration?
Well, I mean, a number of people, and myself included, certainly see the influence of someone like Jackson Pollock on this work. I think the expressiveness of working in that manner is something that I just naturally have an ability to do. I like movement, I like gesture, so
we can see it here.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
I heard the Goldberg variations, Glenn Gould's interpretations of them, and I was fascinated by not only the music, about his genius and about his passion for life, and I thought that would be a nice sort of an accompaniment to when I did these pieces. So the gestures were often inspired by listening to that beautiful classical pieces, and yeah.
So during the process of your work, you would listen to his music,
Sure,
which inspired you?
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So that's why
Nice
some of the pieces will be a little bit more calm, some pieces have a little bit more energy in them. So, yeah. And certainly working with Robert and being so close with him in the studio, and then having the fortune to work with Robert's printer at the time, Tom Burrill, it got my interest even more, and just going to galleries and being involved and meeting artists. I had the good fortune of meeting people like Willem de Kooning and Robert Rauschenberg and Jasper Johns and Andy Warhol. I mean, that's a big inspiration when you get to meet some of the greats. Sure.
There is a story that Patti Smith gave you a book as a gift of children, and you took your first photographs of children, one-year-old children, in black and white. How do you like to work with children?
It has become one of the most rewarding aspects of my career, doing these photographs of one-year-olds. I didn't set out to do this project. It sort of just came to me in a manner. I was commissioned to do a picture, as I had in previous years, but this one particular time I approached it in a different manner, and there was something special about it. So the next commission I got happened to be another one-year-old, and I approached it in the same manner, and I was like, okay, these are not baby pictures. I'm not interested in taking baby pictures, but these are people. They just happen to be 1 year old. They are out of that baby stage. They have the motor skills to be able to sit up in a chair. I think that age of 12 months is right at that moment where that personality has developed. Yeah.
Is it sometimes a burden for you to have such a famous name? It's sometimes for actors when they come from the family where already the father was an actor, so it's quite difficult for them. They have to prove a lot, actually.
Well, go ahead.
On the other hand side, it can open also doors.
Sure.
How was that for you?
Well, it's interesting that you asked me that question in relation to the performing arts, because my answer to that has always been, and I still believe this, that within the performing art professions, that is a very sort of accepted and almost promoted and expected situation where you have a family, parents, and they have children, and children often lead into a similar career, or there are siblings. There's a long history of that, and I think people embrace that and sort of like that. Now, when you get into the visual art world, it's a bit of a different story. I don't have the answer to that. I don't really know quite why. So certainly, having worked with Robert and having met the artists who I mentioned previously is a wonderful experience, and it certainly exposes you to the art world in a nice way like that. But ultimately, it comes down to your work, and having Robert as a brother has been difficult. I mean, it's not. First of all, Mapplethorpe is a very singular name. It's not a very common name, so it's. That's something that I have had to deal with, and in the early part of my career, I even changed my name in order to try to have my own identity and do my own work. But like I said, I was doing portraits, nudes, and still lifes very much in the Robert Mapplethorpe genre, and I realized, even though I did well with that work and I have a talent doing it, it was important for me to branch off and do something on my own. On
the other hand side, you studied photography and your brother was at Pratt. He studied art.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever considered that you were his inspiration? I think so, actually.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, Robert had started, he started with Polaroids in the early 70s and had gotten a film camera before I ever came on the picture. So he was well establishing a career as a photographer by the time I came to his studio. Yes, it is interesting that he never had any intention to work in photography. He studied painting and sculpture, and that was, I think, his main interest. But, you know, life sort of throws you, I mean, it leads you, or, you know, as a creative person, I think that's an important thing, to allow life to lead you in a direction. So that obviously was the right time for him, and it was the right thing for him to do, and he took it to a much bigger degree than it already had been. Similarly, I started with photography, and now more and more I'm leading away from that medium. And although these are photo-based works, I have a hard time. I have a hard time calling them photographs, and they're more painterly.
What was your most exciting moment in New York?
Wow, in New York?
Yeah, what was the moment where you thought, wow?
Well, I mean, immediately I would have to say the events in September 2011, but I mean, not only for obvious reasons, but that period in my life, I was 41 at the time that happened. I really hadn't been exhibiting. I was making that transition into doing work like this. And I knew the world had changed and was going to change forever. It was never going to be the same. And, you know, I was getting to a point in my life that now I need to really concentrate on what I really want to do with my art. And so I think realizing the fragility of life and how things can so quickly change, and life is so precious that I really put a lot of effort into my work, and it pushed me.
Could you tell us about your favorite book? It's something very personal. What is your favorite book? Is there a story that...
Well, you mentioned earlier Patty having given me a book when I was young, and it's called Benjamin the True. It's a children's book. It's a fairy tale, but it probably had 150 pages, and I just remember feeling I had reached another plateau in my young life, that it was my first what I could consider an adult book. That certainly touched me, and the fact that she had written a very personal note to me in that book, and she had spoken to my brother quite a bit about me, and I had a brother who's 2 years older as well, and who was going to be the one that was going to have the creative side, and you know, they knew it at that time. So that book certainly means a lot. Being a New Yorker, I love reading about New York, and I love reading about the New York of yesteryear. I'm a very sort of nostalgic New Yorker, I guess you can say. So I remember certain things about this city that I miss terribly. But you know, I think that's just a generational thing, and I would imagine that the younger generation hopefully are experiencing similar things that I did at that age.
Thank you very much for this amazing interview.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a question you were never asked by a journalist you would like to be asked?
Oh boy.
Is this, it's off
camera now. You should email me that one. I could have thought about that one.